We are about to go live here. I saw the countdown, so soon I'll be with you. Looking forward to chatting today. All right, I think we're live now. This is Erin. I'm with the Center for Rural Affairs, of course, and it's a couple minutes before noon, so I'm just gonna casually hang out here for a couple minutes as folks roll in, so please say hello. Maybe let me know where you are joining us from. And since we're talking about plants and pollinators today, I'd also love to hear what's blooming in your yard and maybe what are some of the pollinators that you've seen out and about. I actually brought a little bouquet of flowers that I might show you as a little show and tell before we get started. Thanks everyone for joining. I see a few people are in here with us. Please go ahead and leave a quick comment, say hello. We go live on our Facebook page every Tuesday at noon, so you can count on that. We're always talking about something different here for folks. Hi, Justin. Okay, I'm gonna do a little show and tell, even though it's noon, because I'm pretty excited about it. I went outside this morning and I picked some flowers. Hi, Kate. So I've got some pretties here. And so some of these are native plants and some of them are non-native annuals that I've put in to help bring more bees and other butterflies and pollinators out to my garden area and on my front porch. So I had some yarrow and nigella, zinnias. I've got some monarda, which is a bee balm or bergamot. Hi, Sandra. What's blooming in your yard? So lots of pretties. I think there should be more show and tell in general. Facebook Live is one way to do that. Cool, so it's 12:01. I think I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and I'll reintroduce myself a couple times for folks who join late, and of course the recording will be available after the fact too. So hi everyone, I'm Erin Schoenberg. I'm with the Center for Rural Affairs. I'm here today to talk about getting to know your neighborhood plants and pollinators. There are a lot of fun events happening this month that you can enjoy, of course, you have to enjoy from your home. And then I'll also have some ideas on things you can do more long-term to care for pollinators. I did want to let you know that we've got a couple staff people who will help out with the comments, with the chat box. So if you want to add any questions, that would be a great place to do it, and we'll share some links that you might be able to follow up with, excuse me, after the live. A little bit about the Center for Rural Affairs. We've been around since 1973, and we are based in Lyons, Nebraska, which is in the northeast part of the state. And we really exist to create rural, vibrant communities, or vibrant rural communities, you could say. And you can learn more on our website, which is cfra.org. But we do everything from, state and national policy work to small business lending for entrepreneurs. We help create welcoming communities, really try to provide access to resource for everyone, farmers, ranchers. So get involved. We've got a lot of events ongoing all the time. So that's a little bit about the center. I work from my home office between Lincoln and Raymond, Nebraska, and I'm involved with a few different things at the center, but today I want to focus on pollinators and plants for pollinators. So we'll go through a little bit of a background, and then I'll let you know some opportunities to get involved. So for folks just joining us, I'm Erin with Center for Rural Affairs, and we're talking about pollinators today for probably 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, so I'm not necessarily the expert on pollinators. What I'm here to do is let you know who else is out there and what other events that the center will have going on in the near future and what some other folks are doing. So I'll talk about Bumble Bee Atlas first. And before I really dive into that, of course, if you're not too familiar with pollinators, it's really what the rest of us, count on in order to live. They help plants reproduce. And so actually over 85% of all flowering plants on the planet rely on pollinators for them to spread pollen from one plant to another plant in order for that plant to reproduce, to create seeds and fruit, which end up feeding the rest of us. Other animals and of course humans rely on pollinators. And so in addition to that, just in general to the food production, they also help create and maintain healthy ecosystems. And pollinators are, in a sense, different keystone species in their ecosystems because every other link in that chain or in that web relies on pollinators. And if they are to be removed from an ecosystem, it would dramatically affect and alter ecosystems. And so not only is it important to learn about pollinators, but we need to learn what we can do to protect them and protect their habitat. And so we'll get into a little bit of that. So Bumblebee Atlas is the first project that I want to discuss, and Bumblebee Atlas is a project of the Xerces Society in partnership with the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and Nebraska Environmental Trust has provided funding for them to do this. It's a really cool citizen science project, and that means citizen science means that not only is support from the general public welcome, but it's actually relied upon in order to get the data to make the project really happen. And so it is a gathering of information to help track and conserve the native bumblebees in the state of Nebraska. And I know that when we think of pollinators, often we think of honeybees first, and that's true. Honeybees are an important part, especially of the production agriculture system in this country and around the world. However, they're not a native species here to the United States, and there are so many other types of pollinators that's important to learn about too. And so as far as bumblebees go, there are actually 50 different species that are in North America, and 20 different bumblebee species that are here in Nebraska, which is a little bit mind-blowing as you get into this. You start learning that there's so much out there. So we are, the Xerces Society through Bumblebee Atlas is helping to track and conserve the different populations around the state. And so they have put a call out to anyone who is interested in getting involved. You can go to their website, and we'll put a link to that. I see that Justin did that. Thank you, sir. So you can go take some online trainings, and then you can adopt a grid cell. And that means you have committed to going to that grid cell, which is just a small area in the state of Nebraska, and doing 2 bumblebee surveys between June and September. And so actually just yesterday, I adopted a grid cell. I'm pretty excited. It's out kind of in the western part of the state. So I'll go out there 2 different times throughout the course of the summer, and I'll actually be able to safely capture bees, and I'll make some observations on what types of plants have they been on, in what kind of environment did we see them, what was the temperature like that day, the wind, and so gathering a lot of information, and then I'll upload it to their website, and I'll probably try to do some of the identification of species myself, but let's face it, I'm not a pro, and they are, so they'll help out and make sure we get, the best information out there. And then they'll be able to use that information to see how the different bumblebees range, has changed, and how maybe in some areas it's more stable, and how if populations are declining in others, it'll help provide that information that maybe we can do something about that, whether that is trying to alter land use, reducing, pesticide use is another thing that is important when we're thinking about preserving some of these populations. So check out Bumblebee Atlas. And even if you decide not to adopt a grid cell and be a part of that project in that way, you can still use the Bumblebee Watch app to include your sightings. So wherever you are, you can still watch for bumblebees and include that information, and they'll still be able to use it. So it's pretty exciting. I can't wait for my little road trip out to western Nebraska. I'm going to take just a second and welcome folks who may have joined us late. I see there's a few new people. Hi everybody, I'm Erin. I'm with the Center for Rural Affairs, and we're talking about plants and pollinators and some ways you can get engaged. So next we'll talk about Pollinator Week. And Pollinator Week is part of Pollinator Month, which is June here in this country. And there are national events, but here in Nebraska, there are a lot of specific ways you can get involved. And it's pretty neat to see how many events are out there available really to anyone. And so Nebraska Game and Parks Commission was responsible for putting together this awesome website, and we will put a link to that as well, to Nebraska Pollinator Week. Game and Parks has several events planned. Center for Rural Affairs has one. The Nebraska Department of Transportation, Lake McConaughey, the park naturalist out there, and there's probably a couple others I'm missing. So if you are watching right now and I missed something, I would love if you added that comment as well. So there are, because of course COVID-19, there are virtual events this year. So the cool thing about that is that you might be able to attend multiple events, where if everything was in person, it would be a little bit more difficult to get to those events. So there's actually one tonight. It is an introduction to Nebraska Pollinator Week and iNaturalist, which is a really neat app that is, again, kind of a citizen science type of app where you can include your observations of different insects and plants around you and help get those on the map. And you can get help from your peers in identifying what those different species are. And I know they have a specific pollinator challenge. So check that out. Make sure to go to their website to see all of the events. Some of the other events going on include learning about the larval stage of monarchs. Of course, monarchs are a really important pollinator that has been a little more well known to folks as far as its population decline. And so it's that flagship species in a way that we have already rallied around, and we know monarchs and then milkweed and goldenrod in the fall are very important, and how all of those plants and pollinators are related, but there are so many other species to learn about too. So some of the other ones include the relationship between pollinators and certain prairie plants, and there's even a trivia night one night. So hope to see some of you at a few of those events. And of course, I'm, a little biased, and we'll spend more time talking about the Center's event that week. So on June 30th, we are bringing in Sarah Bailey from Prairie Plains Resource Institute. And Sarah is the greenhouse manager, and I might get this wrong, master naturalist? I think I'm missing a word there. Anyway, she's awesome, and she has a lot of info about prairie restoration and that process. And so it's a women's learning circle, and it'll be a way to have a really nice just back and forth casual conversation with Sarah and with the others who join. So hope to see you there. Hi Raul, thanks for joining. And the nice thing about all of these events is that there's going to be a slightly different format and feel to all of them, but there will be experts there to host and to co-host. And so you're going to learn a lot no matter what, no matter if there are, 50 to 100 people in there, and maybe you're not really all able to engage in an active discussion. It might be more learning from the expert speakers and seeing slides and participating in polls and in chatting. If the events are a little smaller, that can be nice too, because you might be able to have a little more two-way dialogue. So those are some really great ways to get involved this month in Nebraska. And even if you're not in the state, because these are virtual events, you might be able to register and participate too. Of course, certain species of pollinators are native, to certain areas, and even if they're not native, we know they might be in other regions too. But it doesn't mean that it won't be relevant for you, regardless of where you're at. A lot of the best practices, are gonna be useful no matter where you are. So Bumblebee Atlas, Bumblebee Watch, and then Pollinator Week are two ways to engage in the short term, but more long term, there are also ways that you can be involved. And so I'll mention a few of those, and feel free to add any more if there are others you want to mention in the comments. So a few groups that you could join online, just here on Facebook. One that the Center for Rural Affairs started is called Nebraska Friends of Pollinators. So you can look that up, and I'm an admin of that group, and I'll add you. And it's a great place to share photos, to ask questions. Everyone is welcome, whether you are a beekeeper and interested more in managing honeybees, or whether you are a native pollinator and plant enthusiast. I think everyone has something to learn from the other, and it's a welcoming group, so feel free to hop in there and ask any question that you'd like. There's also another one I just joined, which is pretty neat. It's called Nebraska and Great Plains Butterflies and Moths. Of course, insect pollinators go way beyond bees. Butterflies, moths, beetles, ants. I'm missing something major. Wasps. Don't want to forget wasps. They do a lot of important pollinating. And, in addition then to insect pollinators, you also have birds and bats and other mammals too. So that group's a fun one. Moths often do nocturnal pollination. So that's been pretty interesting, and they have really unique relationships with specific pollinators that really need only very, very specific plants to live. And so that's been an interesting group. Gardening with Nature in Mind is another group that I recently joined. There are many others out there. That one talks a lot about native plants and how to incorporate them into your yard to help pollinators. And then you could also follow UNLV Lab. They have a lot of great resources for honeybees as well as native bees. And then the Great Plains Master Beekeeping Association is another great group, and the Center for Rural Affairs is involved with that. They just held this really successful Bee Fun Day, which was more of a Bee Fun weekend. They had between 1 and 200 people take part in that. And that was just this last weekend. My colleague Kirsten Bailey is involved with that. So that's a really cool group to network with. You'll probably meet a lot of folks and learn from them and maybe share your experience with them. Of course, there's always your own yard, whatever that might be. Maybe you live in the country and have more space to manage. Maybe you have a small yard in town or even an apartment. There are always things that you can do to encourage pollinators and if anything to not hurt them, right? And so for one, you always want to focus on native plants when you can. There are a lot of great local nurseries that can provide you with those plants. And you can also be a little less focused on a manicured yard. It's the lazier you are, the better it probably is for pollinators, which is great news in my opinion. So leaving the leaves in the fall can be huge. Leaving like hollow stems can be great, so bees can nest in there. A lot of bees are ground nesters, and so leaving bare spots here and there around your property can be another way to really help them out. There are a lot of ideas and guides on the Xerces website too, and then a lot of great books out there. Heather Holm is a wonderful author, and Doug Tallamy as well. They have great resources. And then locally, John Farrar, might be saying that wrong, he has a great guide that will really help with identification. So, and one last thing there is accepting more blemishes on fruits that you buy from the store or that you buy locally, and that can really help show that consumer demand is not always for the most perfect, blemish-free apple, because the only way to really create fruit like that is to use pesticides. And while in some cases that can be a responsible use, the less that we can use things like that, the more we can help pollinators. And again, that goes for native pollinators as well as honeybees. So, I'm kind of wrapping this up here. I can't believe I've spoken for 20 minutes. I'm kind of amazed. But thanks to those of you who added to the conversation, and I see some great links posted. Hopefully folks can follow up on that. You can always reach out to me. I'm Erin S at cfra.org, and you can find my info on our website too, of course. So I hope that after today, it's just kind of drilled in how important pollinators really are. We wouldn't be here without them, and the other animals and plants and ecosystems would not be here without pollinators. So we really need to do what we can to be more involved. It's just one of those snowball effects where you get a little bit involved and it can just really take off from there. So I encourage you to attend a couple events, maybe be a part of Bumblebee Atlas, and maybe I'll see you out there on the road as I head to my grid cell, and might see you on the screen for a few more of these events that are coming up. So thanks again, and don't forget that we go live every Tuesday at noon. So hope to see you back here for another one of these. Thanks, everybody.